Hi, I'm Mimi Chan. Welcome to Culture Chat. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hi, everyone. In this episode, Greg and I answer listener questions. Thank you so much to all of you who submitted these amazing questions. Please keep them coming. If we didn't get to your question today, we will try in the future. We cover everything from Lady Sabre to Sacha Bardot and why Greg is so outspoken about politics. As always, I am grateful to Greg for having these candid and thought-provoking conversations. For those that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. And most recently, he wrote the screenplay for the hit Netflix movie, The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron and an all-star cast. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice. And if you'd like to support with a donation, I would certainly appreciate it. Keep this podcast going by becoming a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com. For comments or suggestions, email me at mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Greg Rucka.
Hello, Mimi.
It's another lovely week with you.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see you. Let's not talk about the week.
Right. Well, we eventually will, so I'll just save it.
Yeah,
it's going to come up.
The inevitable eruption of outrage will once again, have its due.
Well,
but let's start somewhere else.
Let's start. Yes, we are going to start somewhere else because I've been compiling listener questions over the last several weeks, and people are like, whenever you go to one of those random shows where you just ask Greg a bunch of things, this is it. This is going to be the
listener. This is the listener question show.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
First, we're going to start, and we got a lot of comments as well. So I was like, well, I guess we could get some of those in because the first one's amazing. They actually just like, how are you guys? We love you so much, and I could listen to you both for hours. I was like, oh, don't tell us that because no. So it was very nice to get a lot of love from the listeners. So that was really cool. And I did promise it wouldn't be too much old guard because I know you've been inundated. But of course, a couple fans actually just wanted to ask you, like, how amazing has it been seeing all the fan art?
Oh man. I like that question. Thank you for everybody who asked that question. Because that is not a question I've been getting.
Exactly.
It's awesome. I haven't had the chance. I almost had a moment today where I could. It's been really, really busy. Like today, like midnight tonight, we're recording Thursday, and it will be the movie will have been out for a week. I mean, that's nothing, and it feels like it's been out for weeks. You've been
doing pressers for several weeks. So.
Yeah, and the last week in particular has been just crazy. So I haven't had a chance to actually, I almost got to open up Instagram today and just type The Old Guard in and see what people are doing, and I've only seen a handful of the pieces. I've seen all the pieces that Netflix, went to artists for. And I've seen a couple pieces that are genuine fan art. You know what I mean? That aren't going to Jen Bartel and saying, did you do a thing? But are people who saw the movie and then were like, ooh, I wanna, this is what I'm motivated to. And, I've seen cosplay pictures already.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly,
well, the comic's been out though, so.
Well, oh yeah, but they're not doing comic cosplay.
Oh,
they're doing movie
they're
cosplay.
Doing movie cosplay. Got it.
They're doing movie cosplay, and well, they should, but and with the proviso that movie cosplay for the Old Guard. The thing that's going to trip you up is going to be the props. You know what I mean? But that said, we're already seeing cosplay as well. And it is it is so gratifying. It's so flattering. And flattering's not even the right word, because that makes it seem like they're flattering me, and they're not. And it's not really flattery to the work. What it is it's this feeling of, we've put something into the world that people are responding to strongly enough at this moment that it's speaking to them, and they want to answer, and they're answering in all these wonderful ways. Like, if you go to Giphy and you type in the old guard, and you did this a week ago, there were maybe a dozen GIFs, right? And I don't know, but I suspect the way that happens, since it was a week ago, meaning before the movie came out, that was Netflix going to Giphy and saying, here is the check, right? Because money's going to change hands. And here are a dozen GIFs we've prepared. Okay. And I had opportunity to type in the old guard in my Giphy search today, and there are like 60 now. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because people are now throwing them up, and they're different moments, and they're moments from all over the place in the movie. And again, that's responding to, that's people responding. Right? Yeah, I'll give you another example. The bootlegs have started. Like, that took no time.
That's when you know you've really made it.
I've had a few people say, "Did you know somebody's selling this?" It's like, wow, that's copyrighted, guys. That's not yours.
Yeah.
Well,
inevitable.
That I'm not sure about, but that's a separate thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there.
Right.
So, yeah. But I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. So, next question.
Yeah.
So yes, it's been really, really amazing though to see, and I know you've been posting a lot of it on your Instagram, and can't get enough of it. So I love the different moments of the artwork as well, because it's not just like the replay of the poster image of everyone just there. They're actually taking scenes and adding quotes and stuff. So that's always really cool to see. Okay, on the TV show thing, someone, and I'm so glad they are pressing you about it, even though I kind of know the answer. I want to know about the Lazarus TV show.
We're pending right now, though we are coming up on the end of our time at Amazon. So I don't, given the nature of the pandemic right now, I think that we will be seeking greener pastures elsewhere. I got to work with, and I have to be circumspect here because things, and because things are in flux. The guy that I was working with on this iteration, I've been really, really, God, it's really hard to talk about this because I got to talk around stuff, and I hate doing that.
It's okay. It's okay. Listeners understand.
The project consistently attracts talent who gets it and loves it, and is terrific to work with. And it consistently runs into a certain class of development executive who is not helpful to the project, and that's all I'll say about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazon's track record in developing stuff speaks for itself right now.
The process is a bit of a...
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff that they acquired that has lapsed and ended, right? And it's disappointing that I don't think it's going to happen there. And I think of of all the work that I've done, and I think Michael absolutely agrees with this, Lazarus is the one thing that we are like, no, it does adapt. That is TV. There's no ask there. There's really, you don't need a whole lot of imagination to see it.
No, I've seen it.
Yeah.
In my head. You told me I might be able to shoot it myself, so.
Yeah. Well, look, at this rate. So, I wish I had better news.
Yes.
I wish I frankly had any news.
Well, the thing I think our listeners will be happy to know is it's not like some of the other projects where you've been able to just say, oh, sure, you want to use these characters and just kind of let go of it. Like, this is your baby and you will never just let it out of your sight. You're going to follow it through to the end.
Yeah. And that in fact may be part of the problem, right? If I was willing to say, sure, or frankly, if Michael was willing, to say, because I speak but there's no decision about this that isn't a we. So if both Michael and I were willing to just say, yes, we will take a large check and we will go away, we may be in a different position. But neither he nor I want to enter into a relationship where in good faith we're told, yes, we want to make Lazarus, and we go, okay, we trust you to do it, only to find 18 months later that they've done an animated series about squirrels, one of whom is named Forever Carlisle.
Right. No. Yeah. I would take offense, and I would definitely.
That's.
I will help you march on whoever needs to be marched on for that one.
I was going to say that check would have to be extraordinarily large for me to square that, to be like, oh well, it was their choice. It's
but that's what's annoying. It's like, it's not like they would just take it and definitely do it anyway. It may just, like you said, be sitting and then not get done and just kind of expire. And it's so frustrating. So many great projects are in that situation.
Well, and I can say that Lazarus is not, and I think we've talked about this before, right? I think I've had at this point maybe 6 or 7 things optioned. Like 7, I think maybe we can say 6 properties since 2003 have been optioned. And of those, we now have seen 3 actually turn into things that people can acquire via a media device that isn't reading, right? Whiteout took about 5 or 6 years, and went through 3 different development stages with people. Queen and Country has taken 15 years to get to here, and it's still not being filmed. I'm just told that it's the next project for Sir Ridley Scott when he finishes the thing that he was trying to make when the pandemic came down.
Right. Yeah. So it's slated.
A Ridley Scott Queen and Country film, I would say, is worth waiting 15 years for. But that's, like I said, that's 15 years. Stumptown was 9 freaking months from we really want to make this deal to it's on ABC.
Yeah.
And the old guard, starts, Skydance slides in, to my mentions and to talk like them hip kids, in late 2017, and here we are in summer 2020, and there's a movie. So sometimes it takes a really long time.
Well, hopefully that just means it's going to be amazing, and we're going to have it at the right moment, at the right time, and with all hoping. The ducks in a row kind of thing. So, now that I know you so well, I will be relentless on the Lazarus thing. I will just show up at your door with a sword and be like, all right, when do we start choreographing?
Yep. Trust me, your potential involvement has indeed been noted. In more than one place.
That's so funny. And what's funny is that when Michael first met me, without even knowing me, he's like, oh,
Are you supposed to be doing sword stuff then? Because he just said, "Oh, you're a martial artist. Oh, you did move
Yeah.
on," and that was like the first thing out of his mouth. I'm like, yes, whatever. If it has to do with Lazarus, I will say yes. Just I
Well,
love
then,
Lazarus.
actually, don't be surprised if in the next couple months you find yourself getting the odd email saying, "I don't suppose you could videotape yourself doing something," because Michael worked from that reference.
Yes, I know. I've spoke to Michael about it, and
Well, I spoke to him today. He's doing a sequence at the end of Risen 5 right now. He's wrapping up the issue, and it's giving him fits because I have an action sequence, and he is having to figure out how to place everybody and everything, and then where is he putting his camera, and so on. And I do this to him with alarming regularity, and
he told me.
yeah, and he doesn't love me for it.
But he loves you. He just doesn't love you for that.
Yes, and that's why I can continue to do it. If that was what our relationship was predicated on, I'd be screwed. So,
but it all works out in the end because all the issues are always amazing. Well, but yeah, I'm here and I love Lazarus. So I'm very dedicated to making sure our readers get that next issue. So.
I am dead serious when I say, and now this is going out on the podcast. So
I know
you're locked in, and you're gonna need to tell Oscar too, because we could use him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He likes getting beat up. So I'm presuming that I get to beat him up, obviously.
Well, the nice thing is we can do just about anything to Forever, and she does seem to bounce back.
Right. So, you kind of have a theme there with that. You know? The women bounce back.
Yeah, there is a thematic through line from Forever to Andy, and
yeah, I love that. And you haven't gotten a chance yet, but listeners, we are still reading Circe, so do not stop.
Yes.
Greg's going to answer all your questions and thoughts on Greek mythology once he finishes, but it actually ties in really nicely to the old guard and everything as well. So I can't wait to discuss that. All right, next question, which not many, but more than one, a few people asked, will there be any more Lady Sabre comics?
That's really hard. And I'll be really, really honest. I don't think so, which has led to both Rick and I trying to figure out how we make right to those backers who in particular bought characters. And the reason that I don't think there's going to be more Lady Sabre is there are a number of reasons. One of them is despite the success of the Kickstarter, nobody made any money off that. Believe it or not, you can have an incredibly successful Kickstarter, and I don't think we mismanaged anything. I think at the end of the day, when we were all done, I think there was about $6,000 to split between myself, Rick, and Doc. And that was supposed to cover, never mind the effort, because we didn't have, this was before fulfillment services were a thing.
Yeah.
We did the fulfilling.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to cover all of the fulfillment stuff, plus, the year and a half of Lady Sabre we had done. And it was a labor of love that we were able to do at a time in our lives when we could afford to do it. Mm-hmm. Rick and I, this is you've heard it here first bit, are working on something, and if that goes the way I want it to go and the way he wants it to go, I want to be able to provide for all the Lady Sabre backers who we have not been able to service for the bonuses, with the equivalents in this.
Oh, okay.
So people who got characters named or so on will ideally get that here.
Right.
It pains me. the pain for me is that it's not honestly this sense of we weren't able to finish the story. What pains me is that we worked very, very hard to fulfill our obligations in the Kickstarter, and at the end of the day, we have fallen down on that. That what we offered in good faith, we are not able to supply. And I am aware that one of the things that you do take on when you back a Kickstarter is you may get boned. Like, there is actually a Kickstarter that I backed at the same time as the Lady Sabre Kickstarter was going on. They still have not delivered.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, they still have not. And there's an email once every 4, 5, 6 months about how we're working on it. But the fact of the matter is, it's never going to be done.
Wow. Yeah. I imagine it's hard for Kickstarters to really get off the ground. And even though, like you said, you get your goal, it doesn't mean that it's your goal. It's a little deceiving. Like, people don't kind of understand like what goes into it.
It's presented as a marketplace, and it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an investor forum. And I have a lot of mixed emotions about it, because that Kickstarter was actually really, really difficult. It was an incredibly intense 30 days that the campaign ran. It was an incredibly difficult fulfillment, and we had all sorts of problems with fulfillment. And we didn't skimp on this. We put every penny into what we had, to fulfilling. And still we had books where, I mean, literally backers were getting this beautiful book, and they'd open it up and the block would fall out of the case, which is, for those people who do not understand what I just said, in printing terms, the block refers to the block of pages, right? So the pages are bound together, in this case, with thread. And then the block is placed into the case, the boards, right, which is the hardcover. And it is actually glued in. It's not sewn in.
Right.
The end papers are glued in. And, I think fully a fifth of the books that were sent out, the blocks hadn't taken. And people were being like, my book fell apart.
Oh.
And so all of a sudden we're in a position, because I'm not going to turn around and say, well, screw you.
Right.
That's literally, you bought something and it's faulty. So we entered into, so the result of that was, okay, if this has happened to you, please send us photos, right? We need proof.
Right. Send me another book.
Exactly. Just send me photos of the damage. You send me photos of the damage, we'll pack up a new one and we'll send it out to you. But that meant on a fifth of these, we were sending out the same amount of postage twice. Never mind the same amount of stock.
Right.
And as I said, we were doing this before fulfillment services were really a thing. So, Jen spent the better part of a year every evening, boxing these things up while I was in my office trying to work.
Right.
And then I would go to the post office and I would send, out 50, 60 at a time. And it was, for my birthday that year, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sudaconic, and Chelsea Kane and her husband all came over to my house for my birthday present was they came over to help us box up the rest of the books.
Yeah. I was gonna say it was like assembly line stuff going on.
That was
wasn't
exactly
it?
what happened.
I can just see it.
And they did it as a surprise thing for me.
They're the best.
Matt had asked me, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "I fucking want this Kickstarter done is what I want."
and he's like,
Yeah, and Fraction being Fraction, he went away and said, "Hey guys,
this is what Greg wants for his birthday.
We've got a barn. Let's put on a show." So
I love that.
I mean, I do too, and I'm incredibly grateful. But I'm also, like I say, it does sting.
Yeah,
it does sting. There's a lovely young woman named Vavia. I don't know if she's listening to this podcast, and I adore her. And she was one of our fiercest backers, and she has been a fan of my writing for years and years, and I adore her. And I had the character. She had bought a character, and I knew who the character was.
Yeah.
It was going to be the character at the top of this second story. And so it burns, it rankles. And I feel that I certainly owe a lot of the backers more. And I want to know, I don't know if I just eventually reach out to everybody and say, I am PayPaling you the money you are owed, and I apologize. Or if there's another way to make right.
Well, it sounds like you kind of have a plan for that, though, with a pending project. Yeah. So, and I think that, and I know that you take it to heart because that's the type of person you are. But at the same time, Kickstarter investors do know the situation and the risks associated with these type of projects, and these things do happen. So, I mean,
some do. Yeah. I mean, there were plenty of people, even while we were trying to fulfill, who were like, I can't believe I haven't received this yet. And what the hell is the matter with you? And it was like, read the Kickstarter. It said it's going to take 3 months for us to get the books. I mean, we were getting those emails within 2 weeks.
Because they think it's an order.
Yeah. They think, like I said, they think they're going to a store, and they're not. It's not a store. Yeah. It is an investment portal.
Yeah. And there's a lot of misunderstanding there with that whole Kickstarter platform. Yeah. So there's definitely challenges. So, all right. So our next question is, I would like to hear him talk about Sasha Bordeaux. She seems like one of his most underrated female characters.
I would
love to know more about his checkmate run in general. And did it end earlier than he had hoped and planned? And does he miss writing Sasha? And would he ever write her again if he had the opportunity?
Okay, so yes, absolutely. I adore the character, and I loved her evolution. And in particular, I loved her evolution in Checkmate. I think that was final iteration Sasha, and I would have loved to have seen her get legs. Like so many characters that I have created for DC, nobody touches them. Mm. Like once I leave, they're like, and we just forget, or we kill them. That's always nice when somebody says, oh, we killed Nissa off screen. It's like, did you? Fuck off. But with Sasha, so, it's long enough now that I see no reason to beat around this bush.
Okay.
When I left Checkmate, Eric Troutman was supposed to take over the book. That was the agreement, right? I had been co-writing with him for over a year on it. In my opinion, some of the best Checkmate stories we did were stories that Troutman and I did together.
Yeah.
He had some fantastic concepts that he was going to uncork. And he had been told, when I said I am stepping off the book, it will be Eric's. Mm-hmm. And then they promptly took it away from him, and they gave him a mini-series where he was supposed to wrap up his story, and they treated him like crap. Mm. And then they basically drove the book into the ground. Mm-hmm. That was not the way that book was ever supposed to go. It was meant to continue on. And had it done so, it would have continued to explore not only the nature of espionage in the DCU, which was the premise, but absolutely would have gone a lot deeper with Sasha and with the Sasha Mr. Terrific relationship and the other things going on there. the character, the character came about because during my detective run, I was still writing the Kodiak novels. So I was up to my eyeballs in personal protection. And I just loved the idea of Bruce Wayne getting a bodyguard, whether he wanted one or not. Right? Because I just thought it made so much sense that the board of directors,
high profile
and an idiot. He's a
and
high profile idiot.
All over the place.
Exactly.
Partying, waking up in all places.
And if you're on the board of this multi-billion-dollar, multinational, you are looking at this guy going, he is a liability in every possible way. But, God forbid he gets kidnapped or whatnot, because nobody, again, the conceit is nobody knows he's Batman.
They don't know he's Batman.
Right? They don't know that's never ever going to happen. Right? So they're like, we got to get him a bodyguard. We got to get him a PSA. And I love the idea of him getting this PSA who was actually really good at her job. So that, try as he might, he wasn't going to be able to fully shake her. And that one of the things that would happen as a result of that relationship would be that, and I've said this elsewhere, right? Superman is Clark Kent. The only difference is the costume and taking off the glasses, right? But Clark is, that's always Clark.
Yeah.
Right? Batman is always, there is no Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is an act. Batman is always Batman. Right.
He's the costume.
And so at a certain point, she was going to get hip to that. And when that happened, he was going to have, because he's not going to kill her. He's not going to, be like, I will use this magic brainwashing drug. Identity crisis, I think, had not quite happened yet. So the idea of going in and erasing people's minds was not a thing the DCU did. And the possibilities in that story of, well, what happens when here's this person who in her own way is just as committed and driven as Batman.
Right.
And now he can't get rid of her. Well, then the only thing he can do is bring her in.
Yes. Bring her in.
That's the only thing he can do is pull her inside.
Right.
And then you get the whole raft of really interesting stories like you do in Punisher.
Right.
Over on the Punisher run of what does it mean to change worlds, to move from this world where you wear normal clothes, to this world where you have a costume and you're going out at night swinging from rooftops. And then, of course, what does that mean? It is fascinating to me how that isn't the end of Sasha's journey. That's really the beginning of it. And I did love who she had become in Checkmate. I thought that was her starting to find her best self.
Right. So, well, maybe one day we'll get more.
Maybe one day.
maybe.
I'm not holding my breath on that.
I know, but it is a really cool character. It's kind of always unfortunate when you create these cool characters and they're somewhere that you can't just pick them up and take care of them yourself. So, okay. Next question is, when will Vancouver ever hold up their end of the Cascadian rivalry? And I had to look this up. I was like, what the hell is she talking about? And then
this is inside.
Greg will get it.
This is an inside MLS question. I don't know, but they're playing the COVID Cup in not too far from where Mimi is sitting as we have this conversation.
Again, we're sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for Florida.
The MLS COVID Cup is underway, and so I'm not sure we can call this a season. Next season, I don't say. So let's say 21-22. Let's say 21-22 for Vancouver. Vancouver gets to take the cup home. The Cascadia Cup is the rivalry between the Cascadia football / soccer clubs. So it's the Portland Timbers and the Seattle Sounders and the Vancouver Whitecaps. And the Whitecaps have had a rough couple of years. Though ironically, they sold one of the up-and-coming greatest players in the world, in my opinion, 2 seasons ago. He's now playing for Bayern Munich, and so hopefully that money gets well spent on investment, guys.
I admittedly was like, what is this question? Yeah, I was like, I didn't read Cascadian rivalry. What is that?
Yeah. Because
right.
This portion of the U.S. and British Columbia is referred to Cascadia.
Okay.
Right, and there's actually a Cascadian secessionist movement that we are the nation of Cascadia. There is and if going back to Lady Sabre, that's where she is from. She is from Cascadia. So yeah, and I actually do feel it. I am. I have a lot of regional pride in that.
Okay. Well, we do know you're quite.
I like being Cascadian. There was a piece in the Washington Post yesterday about the Old Guard, and it had one of the only photos I've seen of me in all of this, and it's a picture of me on set. We're on location, and it's me and Gina. And somebody commented upon seeing it as Rucka's in uniform, because I have one of my watch caps on, and I'm wearing my Timbers hoodie.
Of course you are.
So yeah, I wear my regional pride.
I love it. I meant to bring this up during the last question because you said, you did the Sasha character while still writing at the Kodiak novels. And I wanted to let you know I started Critical Space, and I'm just in the beginning. But I was reading the acknowledgments because, we had a conversation on a couple podcasts ago about, the acknowledgments and the dedication. And I ran out of the room. I'm like, Oscar, you're not going to believe this. Greg talks about Dit Da Jiao in his acknowledgement section. And I was like, my dad makes Dit Da Jiao. Like, we're like, it's like no joke for us. So the fact that you wrote about that in your book, I was like really excited to read it. First of all, I'm like, what does this have to do with the book?
Yeah, you're gonna be really happy when you hit part 2.
So I just thought, oh, wow, Greg and I can actually talk about Dit Da Jiao. What?
Yep.
For our listeners.
I used to have a bottle of it. But it's, does it go bad?
No, it shouldn't if it's done well. Actually, it's like, not wine, but it's actually fermented's the wrong word, but it has to sit for several years before each batch is ready. So my dad has all of these huge, like those big water bottles that you fill for the coolers, right?
Yeah.
So all of those are like filled up with Dit Da
and they're like
and it
dated.
has years. Yes. It has, and it's only in his writing, and he has everything. It's very secret. It's a very secretive thing. Like, you don't get to know what goes in, but it's alcohol based.
Do you have the recipe?
Technically, I do, right? But the thing is, it's all in Chinese. But I did video the process once.
I was going to say, has he ever sat you down and said, now we're going to make a batch?
No, he's not like that. He's still very secretive. Like, even with his cooking,
Yeah.
he'll say, "Oh yeah, come over. I'll teach you how to make this," and I'll get there, and everything's pre-seasoned. He goes, "Okay, so now you put it in the pan." I'm like, "What the hell?
Wait a minute.
This is not-" So he's just really secretive by nature, and
Well,
so yeah,
you're
the
gonna have to
Dita
pry
Chow-
some of that out of
I
him.
know
think.
that. I know. He's super secretive though, and very sneaky about it. So, but I love that you know what the Tajao is. And did
Yeah.
you use it, or you just
I did.
check? You did. Okay.
I did
Okay.
use it. My friend Alex Gumbach, who I have known, I met him in college. He was I think a year or two behind me, and was we met doing theater.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of fell in love with each other because we were always doing fights.
Right.
And he, I had done very little by way of actual martial arts
Mm-hmm.
growing up. I had done some fencing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was more interested in stage combat than in combat.
Right.
And Alex had, he was one of these guys who had spent years learning kung fu.
Mm-hmm.
And taking our niece
Mm-hmm.
and other classes. So we would have these long conversations, and then we would, being stupid college students, take our various weapons and go out on the quad and just spar freestyle.
Right.
And end up sending each of us to the hospital at least once.
Oh my God.
I have a scar on the inside of my my left arm where he buried the tip of a rapier. When I missed a parry, I didn't push it off far enough, and it went in.
Yep.
And I actually drove a rapier blade, maybe about a third of an inch into that little flap of skin you have between your thumb and index finger.
Oh, nice.
Which luckily did not give him tetanus or tendon damage.
Yeah.
So when the time came in critical space, because Dita Zhao does not enter that book until after the characters have gone on strike.
Okay.
And have basically said, well, I mean, ideally you won't see it because you have the book.
Right.
But in the writing, there was a moment where they all said, "We don't know what you think you're writing, but that ain't it."
Mm-hmm.
And I had to dive into all this research, and it was actually Alex who started helping me. And I'd gone out to New York to see him. Yeah, I was out for other stuff, and he gave me a bottle of Dita Zhao.
Yeah, I love
it. And he was like, "Oh no, Atticus would be just soaking in this stuff."
Yes, and it's so smelly and so stainy. Like our sheet, like I only like white sheets, which is ridiculous because back when Oscar used to spar a lot, like all my sheets get ruined all the time because basically you put it on, especially at night, and just like really
and
like slather it on and wrap it. And the rubbing out of the bruises and the joints and oh my God, it's super painful. But I actually kind of like the smell of it, but it is really, really like strong.
It is. No, it is one of those. It's an acquired scent.
Yeah. But I'm a kung fu girl, so I mean,
so I was gonna say kind of the scent of your childhood.
Yes. Yeah. So, but anyway, I was so excited to see Dita Zhao in your acknowledgments. I was like, what? I can't wait to read this book. So, all right. That was my listener.
There you go.
Insert there. But all right, the last one's going to take us, into the dark, but it was, what inspires you to be so politically active?
What inspires me to be so politically active? That's actually a fairly deep question. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume that that's asking more specifically, why do I feel that that this has to be a part of the work I put into the world? Because my political activism in my personal life isn't on display. Right. The fact that I attended a town hall meeting today, and did not get questions answered, or or where I'm giving money and what petitions I'm signing and so on, that even in the public eye, like if you're following me on Instagram, right now, most of the posts are, "Hey, old guard," and the rest are, "What the fuck, man?" and that what the fuck man is being pointed at any number of people right now. But hey, guess what? Breonna Taylor's murderers are still at large.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not. I came to the conclusion early on, and it might have been simply because I was reading these private eye novels by Robert B. Parker. I was reading the Spencer series. And if there is, you know, and you gotta, geez, I'm all over the place on this. This is going to be a long one. I apologize. And now everybody goes, oh, this one's going to be a long one? Yes, this one's going to be a long one. I came to being a writer thinking I was going to write private eye novels. Okay, that was really my first love in literature. And I was a total nerd growing up. I collected comics in high school. I played, D&D and RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu. I was a fantasy guy. But fantasy novels actually really did it for me. And most sci-fi really didn't do it for me. I loved, Star Trek growing up. But the older I've gotten, the more I've been like, it doesn't speak to me the same way now as it used to. Mm-hmm. I loved Star Wars growing up. But Star Wars isn't science fiction. Star Wars is fantasy. It's fantasy, and it sort of has a coating of science fiction on it.
It's in space. It's space opera, but it's...
Yeah, exactly. But it was the private eye novel that I think I really fell in love with. And I fell in love with it because my mom gave me a book by a guy named Stuart Kaminsky, the late Stuart Kaminsky, who was a professor, I want to say, University of Florida in film before he passed. He was a grandmaster of the Mystery Writers of America. And he wrote several series. And one of them was about a private investigator named Tobias Peters. His real name is Tobias Pevsner, but he's Americanized it. And the series starts in the early mid-30s and is set in Hollywood, and then sort of moves up through the Second World War. And it was Kaminsky's way of writing these mysteries where he could write about these movie stars. So Toby always ends up on these cases where he's hired by Mae West, or Howard Hughes, or Judy Garland. And the first one of these that I read was Murder on the Yellow Brick Road, which my mother gave me because she had been told, well, it's about the Wizard of Oz, so it's suitable for a 10-year-old.
Yeah. It
is not about the Wizard of Oz. It's about people making pornos on the disused Wizard of Oz sets, including one actor or one of the performers dressed up to look like Judy Garland. I'm 10. So there was no going back after that. I went to the library and I was like, there are 6 more of these. I'm reading them now. And I think I was aware that even in those at the beginning, and in that book, in Murder on the Yellow Brick Road, it's a first-person PI narrative. And in the course of that story, Toby's, trying to figure out who's doing this. And they know that some of the little people who were used in the filming, there's a connection there. So he goes basically into that community. And he meets a character who in the series will become his best friend, named Gunther Wurstmann, right? And Gunther is Austrian, I believe. He might be German. And he is a very educated little person. And he is also clearly from, I can't remember if it's Germany or Austria, but at a time, when Hitler is on the rise. And of course, he's got a little mustache. and he's very sweet and he's very smart. And in a lot of ways, he's very naive.
Okay. And
he is the most wonderful, dignified character in this book that is about, he meets Raymond Chandler. He's hired by Judy Garland. There are pornos being made. And yet there is this chapter that is just was heartbreaking to me. And I think in that I saw the power of the genre, right? That this was a window into a place that was, and there was something being said to me, look at this person in a different way, right? This isn't about, oh, he's funny, he's short, right? And then, I sort of moved from that to Parker Spencer novels, and Parker, deliberately or not, because of when he is writing, is by nature political. And if you don't think so, all you have to do is look at Hawk and Hawk's entry into the series at a period in the early mid-70s when the big black bald guy is always the bad guy. And yet Hawk, throughout the series, isn't just Spencer's peer, but the friendship between them is unlike any other relationship in any of the books. They understand each other in a way that it just... And again, it was like, and then you pick up Lawrence Block, something like 8 Million Ways to Die. And 8 Million Ways to Die has not aged well. But at the time, the character of Chance was a revolutionary character. Nobody had seen a pimp, and in particular an African-American pimp, who was ethical, moral, and collected art and didn't walk around in a sharkskin suit driving a pink Cadillac, right?
Right.
And so aside from that love of the genre, it was this realization that every time you put a story into the world, you are saying something. Whether you want to or not, you are saying something. And it is incumbent, I think, upon the artist that they therefore interrogate what it is they are saying and why they are saying it. Now, that doesn't mean the stories need to be polemics. They absolutely shouldn't, because nobody wants to be lectured to, right? If I give you a story to read, I want to entertain you. But I also would like you to be able to leave with maybe an awareness of something that you hadn't considered before, or a new awareness of it, or a new approach. So you take all of that, and then you think, and this has come up a lot about in discussions about the old guard this last week. One of the purposes, there's an argument that says that human beings become human beings because we develop the ability to imagine. And not simply to imagine, but to tell each other our imagination. We can say, hey, what happens if the buffalo flies? And that's what makes the rain, right? That we create these causalities, and we tell these stories, and then we start to tell stories about ourselves. Well, this is a story about the person who does go over the next hill, and they discover, right? And so we fill our lives with narrative. And if you take narrative out of a life, then you are arguably living a life without purpose, because it is not enough to wake up every morning, go to work, make enough money to pay your bills, go to bed. And, if all you're doing is living in that cycle, and then occasionally on the weekend you get drunk, or you get laid, or, once a year you get to go on a 2-week vacation, and that's it, that's what it's all about, then your life is lacking a purpose, right? We define a purpose to it. And part of that purpose comes because we know our lives will end.
Right.
We know there is an end. There is a termination to our story. So we need to invest our story with a worth. And that worth fundamentally, and it may be born from a very selfish place, has grown into a very altruistic one, because the selfish place is we are living to make things better for our children, for the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the people who will come next. But the broader is that we are trying to make it better. And thus, the way that I try to make it better is in doing the thing that I do. And the thing that I do allows me to try to make it better in a specific way. This is not the same better as being a social worker, as being a nurse, as being a firefighter, as being a you know, I am loath to say a good cop, right? But you know what I mean? It's nor is it the same as
public servants and
right, or a teacher in any ways that we teach, right? You know, a community college, you know, elective on opera makes somebody's life better, right? All the students who come through the temple, right? And we all do it. And we all do it in these really small ways. And it really doesn't matter what our professions are,
mm-hmm.
right? And it isn't, and maybe we do it through our church or our synagogue or our mosque. Maybe we do it through a soup kitchen. Maybe we do it through a donation. Maybe we just simply do it because every day we are kind to somebody. But there, you know, our purpose must be to try to make it better, because otherwise, you know, what's the point? I mean, literally, what's the point?
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that, then what you end up with is actually the political situation we are now. There is no interest in making better. These people are only interested in making for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes to, you know, what Mary Trump has been saying on the interview circuit this week. And it's not a fucking newsflash.
No.
Everybody knew this.
Yeah.
He has no empathy. There's a reason there is no White House pet. To own a pet requires empathy. It's necessary. You cannot have a pet if you don't have empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You certainly can't have a cat or a dog, right?
I'm just surprised that he has children, and oh God,
but he doesn't.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
They're little.
He doesn't. They're not children.
Right.
They were never children. They were objects of scorn, ridicule, or desire. You know, yeah.
Well,
like I say, it's not an easy question to answer, but
I think.
But it's because I have to believe that there's merit in the work, and to anybody who says to me, well, that's not the purpose of entertainment. And David Mamet is very fond of saying art is not about anything. The purpose of drama is drama. And my feeling is you're fucking brilliant at what you do, but you're also full of shit. And I will tell you why you're full of shit. Because regardless of whether or not you think the old guard is good, and I'm pretty sure he would think it isn't, there are a whole lot of people this week who are so overjoyed to see themselves represented on a screen.
Absolutely.
In a way that they never had before. And I'm not speaking specifically about Joe and Nikki.
Yeah. And
there is a schoolmate of my son's who sent me a message being like, oh my God, you have no idea how special this is to me. You know? And you're right. I don't. All I know is that it matters that we be able to see ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to see ourselves. And there are a whole lot of people this week. And like I say, you know, maybe it's not a good movie. I'm snowblind. I think it is. But
a lot of people also agree with you. So,
but be that as it may, the importance of the movie in this moment is there are a whole lot of men and women of a whole lot of different backgrounds from around the world, of different religions and different ethnicities and different, you know, just whole different worlds, who are looking at this thing and going, that could be me. I'm there. This is my story too.
Yeah, they feel represented. Absolutely.
So.
And I think, though, a lot of times we as people in general get political and the word political kind of gets jarring and lost, right? So I think a lot of what you represent isn't always political. Like, for example, I don't consider Black Lives Matter to be a political statement. I consider it to be a moral and ethical compass. And I don't
but see, I would take that the other way, right? That political has been made into this dirty word because you get people going, well, I don't want politics in my comics. And the response to that, or I don't want politics in my sci-fi. It's like, did you fucking actually watch Star Trek?
Right.
Like, that's the purpose of the genre. Have you read the original Captain America's? Oh, that was too political when he was punching Hitler. I mean, it's like we have turned it into a dirty word. Everything,
I agree with you.
Everything is political. We should not be afraid of it. Mm-hmm. We should be able to say, you're damn right, Black Lives Matter is political, because it is through our politics that we can fix this.
Yeah.
Right? We can try to redress it. We can make things better. But to say, oh, well, I don't want to have to engage in that way. It's like, well, I can get that. I absolutely can get. I don't have the energy for that right now. But to say I don't want any of it is to say, well, then you want to stick your head in the sand.
Yeah, because silence and neutrality is taking a side.
Yeah.
It's taking the side of the oppression, and it's definitely not the side that I think humans should be on. So.
Inaction is a choice.
Exactly. I mean, Oscar, every day I wake up and I'm like, wow, I don't know what's more surreal, this like COVID-19 pandemic world, or the fact that this is the government that we have. Like, I don't know which one is more surreal, and that's saying a lot because this pandemic is completely insane, but I really
and it's getting worse.
Yeah,
and it's going to get so much worse. And now they're actively hiding they're actively going to hide the death toll.
Yeah, so because of the election, and it's
and what's going to happen as a result of that is going to be bloodshed. Yeah. They are making a series of choices that are going to lead to violence if the course is not averted, but. And on that chipper note,
happy note,
actually, I will offer this, okay? Because I do think, when we talk about this, you've got to have hope, and my hope right now still maintains. There are more people who understand and care than don't. Mm-hmm. There are more people speaking out than were before.
Yeah.
And every voice matters, and every voice makes it louder. We don't all have to agree about everything, but there are certain things that it is absurd to believe that we don't agree about, right? Like certain things, to say, well, my right to exist is somehow greater than your right to exist. You can't make that argument, right? And if you want to make that argument, you have decided you are part of a thing, and the thing you are part of is demonstrably evil and flawed. And you can dress it up however you like, but it's demonstrably evil and flawed. So, and I've talked about this, we've talked about it before. Progress is never as fast as we want it to be. It is slow and it is incremental. And we are living in a very dangerous time where things are very fast around us.
Right.
And our tolerance for the slow change is all but exhausted, especially when the dinosaurs in power are doing everything they can to arrest it. But they are dying off and we are winning. And there may be a lot of blood on the floor when it's done, but we're going to win.
Yeah. Well, like you said in previous, Battle of the Inches, and we do need to still have the hope. So
you got to
get out and vote, register to vote, especially
make sure you're registered.
18-year-olds that are just, now it's your time. So we need you, especially here in Florida,
God.
especially here in Florida.
The youth vote, man, youth is how things change.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not middle-aged white farts like me. My time's past. I can try to be as woke and as aware, to use those words as possible. But, like I say, I'm 50. What an 18-year-old votes for matters more.
Yeah. It's their
And
future.
and when I'm voting, I'm voting with that in mind. I'm voting because my daughter's going to be 18 in 2021, and my son's going to be 21.
Wow.
You know, that's
Yeah.
what we're pushing for. So
Absolutely. So yes, listeners, that's our PSA. Get out there and
Yeah.
register to vote if you haven't already.
And next week we'll see if Greg will have read Circe by then.
All good. All good. So, all right. Thank you so much, Greg.
It's always good and balm for my soul, actually. So
Aw,
and thanks for the questions and those were some really, really smart, good,
yes, we got good
incisive
listener
questions. You got those are great questions. And speaking as a guy who's been answering a lot of questions last week,
I figured
that
it was
was
refreshing.
Oh, that was beyond refreshing.
I figured. I was like, I know what I have for you today. I knew it would be refreshing.
that was glorious. So
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.